we do not need to manipulate anything at any of the levels, and life meant to be lived in the fullness, to the fullest of our capacity. What does it mean? Simply lived to the fullest of our capacity, and we shall never know when can we complete that purpose here, or what is exemplified by this, let's say, embodiment. What to do after awakening? Short background. From a young age, I had spiritual experiences like foreseeing my own robbery during an out-of-body experience, confirmed 20 minutes later when I returned home. But the day my Kundalini rose is unforgettable. My room lit up, an immense force suspended my body, and my consciousness left through the forehead, opening a portal to absolute nothingness. Moments later, God revealed himself, herself, as my room became fully lit. I felt a love and gratitude beyond anything I knew was humanly possible. That energy remains with me, and my consciousness has expanded in ways difficult to explain. Questions. How do we return to the place where I was taken first? Can only God open the portal again, or can we use Kundalini to project ourselves there and return at will? Does this mean my soul has completed its purpose here on earth? I choose to come back during my awakening, as I hadn't had children yet. Now I have two, but I still wonder what would have happened if I had stayed. How can I manage and use the skills I've gained from Kundalini awakening, like opening portals between dimensions during meditation and manipulating energy? Should we really try to awaken the remaining people, or is that a decision of God, and should we not interfere? Okay, so a valid question, set of questions, and let us deal with this attentively so as to clarify what is it that we speak of when we speak of Kundalini awakening in its full measure and Kundalini process. And with regard to this, what has been related here in terms of completion of some purpose here, and asking if one should manipulate this energy to open the portals and all the rest of that. The first line of questioning in the second sentence reads, can only God open the portal again, or can we use Kundalini to project ourselves there and return at will? So, of course, it depends which systems we apply here, systems, that is, philosophical systems, systems that give us metaphysical understanding of what this reality is. Let's say this phenomenal reality, this manifested reality. If we apply tantric understanding, particularly that of the monistic tantra, then Kundalini and absolute, or Kundalini and soul, Kundalini and God are synonymous in this respect. Of course, the limitation here is purely in terms of the way the term has been used and continuously being used in various different systems of thought, and in depending on where it is and how it is being used. If Kundalini is used only in relation to let's say, some movement in the body, referred to as the life force, then we will limit the concept of Kundalini only to what life force, let's say here, represents at that level. And then these kind of questions will immediately begin to rise, where one can manipulate life force so as to have that connection with God at will, or come back there, return there, or still, as in the further, let's say, set of inquiries, um, where the question, effectively speaking, speaks to um, using the skills gained from Kundalini awakening, to opening the portals between dimensions during meditation and manipulating energy. Proper monistic understanding of Kundalini is that it's supposed to bring us completely and utterly in peace with ourselves wherever we are, no matter what are the circumstances, and make our life lived thereon in the understanding that all this what we live at even any given moment in time is nothing other than the expression of that utmost reality. So in other words, the discrepancy between God, absolute, and manifest creation, let's say, and manifest reality before the manifestation takes place, and this world of forms and phenomena have to be one way or another reconciled, so that one doesn't enter this confusion and quandrum of what one to do here. You see, I would even go as far as to say, when this kind of experiences subside and integration takes place, these realizations will dawn sooner or later, and that will bring tremendous sense of appeasement and tremendous sense of relief, that we do not need to manipulate anything at any of the levels, and life meant to be lived in the fullness, to the fullest of our capacity. What does it mean? Simply lived to the fullest of our capacity, and we shall never know when can we complete that purpose here, or what is exemplified by this, let's say, embodiment. Because otherwise we kind of see this as a project, this human life, this embodiment as a kind of project to be completed. Yes, there are perspectives like that, and there are even the kind of grand perspective, let's say, of likes of Ken Wilber with his evocative title Atman Project, the book that launched him into the, let's say, this territory way back at the dawn of the richness of the New Age. So whether this is a project or not, this, of course, to be found by each and every one of us. And the way we relate to this, what we call awakening of Kundalini, is the way we, effectively speaking, relate to the self. And that's what Kundalini, in essence, is. It is the self expressed as this living, breathing being, human being. And this symbiotic connection, due to the limitation of the language, because even the word connection here is limiting, because it's not connection of the kind where something is plugged somewhere to create that connection, but it's rather something which is, by virtue of its being what it is, prevalent everywhere, and has that matter of fact reality of being that what it is, that expresses itself as absolutely everything, meant to be lived simply for what it is. And amidst of that, the hidden purpose begins to reveal itself. So it's not even do we begin to somehow entertain ideas that we need to awaken remaining people, whether this will be going with God's will or interfering. None of these questions will rise. The whole notion of awakened people, awakening people, is again rooted in the paradigms that one speaks and addresses when one not fully understands what really is taking place behind the scenes. So when, of course, that is the case, it's natural to have these questions rising. What am I to do? What's this awakening? What was it all for? Well, at your own existential level, find out for yourself. It's not that somehow God reveals itself to you only to go into hiding, and then now you need to figure it out. Well, if that's helpful, maybe that's a good kind of way of looking at it. Maybe that was also somehow to serve the purpose of seeing what will you do with that, how much you understood of what is really taking place, and eventually begin to bridge all this, what is born of separation, by virtue of simply perceiving or misperceiving the reality for what it is. Because the reality of the Absolute, the reality of Godhead, the reality of the utmost and the Almighty, and this reality of this phenomenal creation is one and the same reality. It's just this phenomenal creation is, we could say, reality looking at itself in a way of self-recognition, recognizing itself through the myriad of forms that it takes so as to have that fullness of experience. So even down to the experiential level, there is no end to that. It's continued and seamless. So find the answers through the simplicity of that everydayness, and you will see how the subtler, more magical, and more, I would say, extraordinary dimension will begin to open itself up. And all these dilemmas of what to do will become secondary. Yes, if you have a calling to go and work with people, well, then just follow that call. If you don't have that call and you have calling of doing something else instead, well, maybe that's what you should be doing. Okay, so just to simplify matters, so as not to keep them in that vein of following that vein of separation. Again, being torn between this, let's say, when is the purpose completed? What am I supposed to do here?